Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast.
Good morning. This is Traci Hales with Right On Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico, and 103.3 in Durango, Colorado. Today I'm talking with Lynn Ellen Doxon about her World War II novel, 90-Day Wonder. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning.
Well, I really have been enjoying the 90-Day Wonder, the story of Gene Sinclair and his friends and his experiences.
Well, I'm glad.
He's a very real person. But before we go further, why don't you give our listeners a little synopsis of what 90-Day Wonder is about?
Okay, it's about Gene, and he's a small-town school teacher in rural Kansas, and he's accepted into medical school, which is the achievement of his lifelong dream, but then he's drafted. This is in the mid-1941 when Americans, and particularly Midwestern Americans, wanted to avoid getting involved in the European War. So he grudgingly begins to serve out his one-year term in the Army. Gets some pharmacy training because he is thinking that will help him when he does get into medical school after he finishes this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the middle of his one-year term, the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor. The United States is at war, and everyone is in for the duration. The Army sends him off to officers' candidate training, and in 90 days, he's a second lieutenant.
Right.
At that point, they took people who had some training, some education, mostly college-educated people, and quickly made officers out of them. And so after he finishes his training there, he finds himself in the desert of West Texas and southern New Mexico, Fort Bliss, and what is now White Sands was part of Fort Bliss at that time. It stretched the whole way. And he's training a new cadre of searchlighters, which is the section of the anti-aircraft artillery that learns to use radar and lights up the sky so that the gunners can shoot down the planes.
Right.
And then finally, he's shipped out to the Pacific Theater. This is the first book of a series, so it kind of ends when he's still in Australia.
I know it ends like, oh no, what happens next?
Yeah,
It
right.
leaves us wondering, because he's got a girlfriend who is also in the new branch of the service.
Yes, she is. She's a WAC. At the beginning, it was WAAC,
Right.
the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, and then it became WAC, the Women's Army Corps. And they actually began to have the same pay as the men and have the same rank as the men.
Wow.
Things like that.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So Gene is quite the guy. I mean, he is excelling at everything, and he's a born leader, and they see that, and they really promote him.
Well, he's based on my father.
Uh-huh.
And actually, I think that by the time the story got finished, my father wouldn't recognize himself in it. But in this book basically follows exactly what my father did.
Oh.
In the beginning of World War II.
Okay.
He was a small town school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He was he went into the Army right after he was accepted into medical school. It talks about William Allen White, who my father was actually his houseboy when he was in college.
Oh my!
And so it basically follows my father's life, although as I get into the second book, I diverge a little bit from that because I wanted to get him into the war a little sooner than my dad did, actually.
Right.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time training other people before he went overseas, and then it goes. The series will go all the way through to the occupation of Japan.
Oh.
Which when I actually went to Japan in 1972, and as I was leaving, my dad said, "Take pictures of any old buildings you find."
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to Kobe, Japan. I found one old building, took a picture of it, and when I got home, those were the days when you developed film and all that sort of thing.
Right.
When I got home with the picture, he said, "That was my headquarters."
Oh my gosh!
But back to this book, it diverges when he has when you meet Sarah Gale, his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea whether my father had a girlfriend during that time. Well,
it adds to the story, right?
But he didn't. But yeah, and it was an important part, I think, of what was happening at the time, because the development of the wax was very important to the winning of the war.
I think so too, and I'm glad that you included that side of things to show the women and where they were going during that time.
Mm-hmm. This is a little different from some war novels because it's more about the people and less about the war.
It is.
It doesn't go into all these battles, and actually more of the people who fought World War II weren't on the front lines. They were people who were training and who were supporting and who were doing all of the other things that were involved. So it is realistic in that way.
It is. Yeah, because they were real people and they got to know each other well, and so I do have to ask, speaking of pictures, the photograph on the front, who is that?
Yes, that is my father and his family.
I love the way their top of their heads are white and the bottom of their faces are tanned.
Yeah, they're farmers. They wear hats all the time.
I love that.
Yeah,
that says so much.
So
it does. That's the gene in the book, huh?
Yes, that's the gene in the book. The one at the end with the army uniform on.
Yeah, and we get into the families and his family and Sarah Gale's family and the whole bit. And you show the culture and how times were. And I really like her. She's really bright. And he appreciates that. And she says, I'm not staying down on the farm.
Right. Well, that's kind of, when my father got out of the Army, he was a school teacher. He didn't get into medical school because by the time he got back from the occupation, he was 32, and in those days that was way too old to go to medical school.
Right.
And so he kept teaching school, and when he was the president of the teachers union in the town we lived in, he went before the school board and said that the women teachers should get the same pay for the same job as the men teachers.
Very good.
And the school board thought he was a total radical.
Right,
and that after all, the men had families to support. And so,
right.
But they eventually passed it.
Well, that's great. I'm glad he spoke out during that time. Now, there's also another thread going through here when he, at the beginning, and he sort of takes the role of his father, is it? In the Revolutionary War.
It was his father's grandfather.
Okay.
He's actually the story of Arthur St. Clair, and he has hallucinations about Arthur St. Clair.
Right.
But he is Arthur St. Clair, and from each of the hallucinations, he learns something that helps him do the job that he has to do in the World War II Army.
Right. It's very cool. It's almost like he's channeling that.
Yes. I thought that was rather fun.
Yeah.
The whole idea of this started when I was doing genealogy and following, and I managed to trace my family all the way back to Charlemagne, and I thought, well, maybe I should start with Charlemagne and write stories about every generation. And I said, no, I won't live that long. I thought, but Arthur St. Clair was my sixth great grandfather, and so I thought he was one of the most interesting ancestors that I found. I've since then found out that maybe I should write something about his wife, Phoebe. But so when he does that, that's because of the interest in Arthur St. Clair.
I love it. I'm really glad that you used that way to show that whole what was going on then too.
Right.
That worked well.
I wasn't sure people would like that, but
I
I'm
liked
glad
it.
you did.
Well, you wrote it in such a way that it's easy to understand that it's a hallucination. So that works really well. Do you want to read something for us from 90 Day Wonder?
When they, after Gene finished his pharmacy training, he and his best friend, his best buddy, went from Washington, where they were, up to see a garden in Victoria that was later Bouchard Gardens, but it was just beginning to be developed then. And on the way back, he said, this is what happened as they were on their way back from visiting the Bouchard Gardens.
Okay.
Morris and I climbed back up to Perry's car and headed for Victoria, with me driving this time at a more sedate pace than Morris. Morris turned the radio to NBC and tuned it up. We drove, laughing, as we attempted to sing along with I Am a Pirate King from the Pirates of Penzance. The music stopped suddenly in the middle of the song, and the announcer came on. We interrupt this program for a special announcement. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air. President Roosevelt has just announced. We will now take you to Washington. Morris and I let out an exclamation, and I had to pull over to the side of the road, my body trembling. The White House is now giving out a statement. The attack apparently was on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu. Hostilities of this kind would mean the president would ask Congress for a declaration of war. There is no doubt from the temper of Congress that such a request would be granted. My pulse raced. Damn, 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 I shouted, pounding the steering wheel, angrier than I could ever remember. How dare they attack the United States? We're in the war, said Morris dully, a vein pulsed on his neck. We sat for a few minutes breathing heavily, then I pulled back on the road as the music resumed. Everything had changed in the blink of an eye.
And it's so true. He was right there when it happened. Yes.
Yeah. And that is basically based on what my father did tell me about what he was doing when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. He was driving back from leave, and was driving the car. And my dad didn't talk much about his experience of the war. So most of this is from research that I've done. He didn't really tell me about it, and it's about the Pacific, which much less has been written about the Pacific. It's about the Pacific theater than about Europe. So I had to dig deep into it, and I had a little help along the way with some people who are experts in that area, and so it's historically accurate as best I could do it. But as far as the particular experiences, my dad didn't tell me. I've talked to a lot of people of my generation whose dad was there and didn't tell them about it.
Right. They didn't want to talk about it. I found that to be true. So it's a lot of conjecture. One thing I find interesting is that you wrote this in first person of a guy. Was that difficult to do?
I worked on it.
Yeah.
I had to work on it, and a couple of guys who have read it says it isn't quite quite the guy, the viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad wasn't a gung ho kind of guy. He was.
Right.
I think it pretty accurately reflects him.
Oh, good. I found it very believable. I'm not a guy, but it sounded true to form.
Right. Yeah.
So, is this your first novel? I know you have other.
This is my
books.
first novel. Yes, it's my sixth book,
Mm-hmm.
but it's my first novel. And I found that writing fiction's way harder than writing nonfiction.
Isn't it true? Isn't it
Yeah.
true?
Mm-hmm.
But you are going to continue writing fiction, and
I am.
good,
Mm-hmm.
because we've got to find out what happened here to Jean.
Yes. Yes. So we're gonna follow Jean, and then my editor said, "Well, what I think you should do is after the war, follow Sarah Gale." So I'm considering that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Of having the fourth novel about Sarah Gale in the 1960s.
Oh, good. That would be fascinating. Yes. I read on the back of the book and saw that your mother is still living, right?
She is, yes. I read some of this by her, and she said that's not right, because that's not what he really did. And I said, well, yeah. And then she doesn't like Sarah Gale at all.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's okay. Did you say it's fiction?
Yes.
So, did your dad live long enough to know that you were writing this?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He died the same year my youngest daughter was born.
Oh.
So,
Well, this is a nice tribute to him.
so that was almost 28 years ago now.
And I see that Jean was really set on not getting romantically involved, but
He was.
Yeah.
He had plans to, he had a very staunch life plan that he was going to go through medical school and then get married. He always intended to get married, but he was going to wait until he was through medical school and had a practice started, and he was going to be able to support a family.
But
and it didn't happen that way.
the heart has its own ways. I mean, Jean really had, like you said, he had his plans. He had his plans set. And he got accepted to medical school the same day he got his draft notice.
Yes, he did. Mm-hmm.
So that was...
Yeah, it was a surprise and a tough thing for him to accept.
It was. But he did well. He made the most of his talent and his intellect. And they recognized that and put him in these... well, first with the new radar equipment.
Yes. Uh-huh. And he was a science teacher during my entire life, and he was my physics teacher, as a matter of fact, my physics and chemistry teacher, and he was very intellectual, and we would go to all these summer programs that he did. He had to do a certain number of them to keep up his teaching certificate, but he did a lot more than he absolutely had to.
Aw.
And so we spent summers in Boulder and summers in Berkeley and summers in Stanford. Actually, we didn't live close to Stanford when we went there because it was too expensive. But we
Yes.
lived in a trailer park in Redwood City one summer.
Oh, wow.
Well, that was another experience, too.
I was going to say, you have all kinds of experiences that you could eventually write about.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your nonfiction books.
Well, the first book I ever wrote was about fuel alcohol production. When I was in my early 20s, or mid-20s, I guess, I worked as a VISTA volunteer in Kansas, teaching about alternative energy. And then one of the people who came to a lecture I gave on fuel alcohol invented a still that was more efficient than one that was much bigger. So we went into business together and began manufacturing these stills and selling them as farm fuel alcohol production stills. And we did that for until he had a stroke and died. It was only a few years. And after, but the sales manager and I tried to keep things going for a while, but without the research and development end of things, it didn't work out. So my first book was the Fuel Alcohol Handbook. Then I went back to school and got a PhD in horticulture. Came to New Mexico as the urban horticulture specialist for the Cooperative Extension Service, which meant I traveled all over the state and taught about horticulture to different people, and I answered the questions the county agents couldn't answer and things like that. And then I also wrote a poem in the Albuquerque Journal called Yard and Garden for a number of years. And after I left there, I put the Yard and Garden columns into a book called High Desert Yard and Garden.
Well, these are quite a bit different than your...
They are.
Yeah.
The next one I wrote is also different. A few years later, we adopted 3 girls from Ukraine. And so the third book is the story of the Ukrainian adoption and how we managed to do that very shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union, at a time when the people of... We went like halfway between Kiev and Odessa to a smaller town, and the people there were very suspicious of what we were trying to do, adopting kids from Ukraine, and it was a long, difficult process.
And that was even before the current disaster in Ukraine.
Yes, that was before the current disaster in Ukraine, and there were. The girls were 3, 4, and 5 when we finally managed to complete the adoption. And they're now 27, 29, and 30. So
you did good. You brought them up.
Yeah, we did it. The next book was a children's book called The World Upside Down. When we were traveling, on the way to kindergarten one day, my youngest daughter asked me, what would happen if the world turned upside down, all except for me? And so we started thinking about what would happen. And then as we were driving to Kansas to visit my husband's family, we wrote a book, a rhyming book about what would happen if the world turns upside down, except for Lydia. And it's a children's book called The World Upside Down.
Oh, that's great. So that's a wide variety of different writing.
It is, and I always loved to write. I started writing stories and poetry when I was in 2nd grade, and won awards when I was in high school for my writing. And then I went on a ship called World Campus Afloat, which is a ship you go to college on.
Right.
And I wrote letters home that my mother took down to the newspaper editor, and my letters were published in the newspaper every week. And later I had people ask, "Are you still in journalism?" And I said, "No, I never was."
I never really was.
Yeah. And so it was actually, after I retired that I began really considering myself a writer. Even though I'd been writing, I'd done all this writing as a specialist with the Extension Service, and I'd done writing before that, and hundreds of articles and in newspapers and magazines. But I just never thought of myself as a writer. I thought of myself more as a scientist.
Well, you can be both, right?
Yes, right.
And you said that writing this fiction book was a lot harder.
It was, yes, because when you're writing nonfiction, you know exactly what to put in.
That's true.
Because you put in what's true.
Right.
You put in what's right.
That's true.
And in writing fiction, you have to make everything up. And you have to make things up that are interesting enough that people want to read them.
Right.
And you have to get it write.
Mm-hmm.
Like the voice was something I had to work on. The level of action was something I had to work on, and I don't know how many times I went over and wrote and rewrote, because I would do research, which I was pretty good at, because I'd done a lot of research. But then I couldn't. You can't just put the research directly into the novel.
Right.
You have to have that be the background and influence what happens in the novel.
Right.
And so you can't just say this is what happened. You have to show what happened. So that was something I had to learn. And so this book was over 5 years in the making. And now the second one is coming along much faster.
Right. Well, you know Gene now. You kind of embodied him enough to
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hold his voice steady. So did you work with a writers group or anything like that?
I didn't. I didn't until the end. I joined Southwest Writers, which is a wonderful organization, and anybody who wants to write should join.
I agree.
And now with the Zoom meetings, you can live anywhere and be a member of the Southwest Writers.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah, and so there were people there who helped me, and then in about, let's see, it was slightly after COVID started, so it was in the spring of 2020. I got into a writers group that we did all online, considering that we couldn't do anything else. And,
right.
And so I got some good critique of the book at that point.
See, there were good things that came out of this time. Well, that's all really interesting. When can we expect to see the next book in this series?
I am hoping that I will have it to Jeff by January.
Oh, great.
And then it just kind of depends on when he can get it out after that.
Right.
I know he's got a long list of books to publish.
Right. Well, make sure you keep in touch and let us know. And the next one, what will it be titled?
Tentatively, the title is The Midnight Cowboys.
Oh, I like
because
it.
that's what they called the anti-aircraft artillery, the Midnight Cowboys.
Oh.
Because they were out there shooting at planes at night with the searchlights.
At night. And that's what Gene is training for here.
Yes, right.
Now, you have a website where your books are all illustrated, LynnDoxon.com. Okay? So readers or listeners can go there and find all about it.
Yes.
Great.
And I definitely want to thank you for setting this interview up.
Oh, you bet.
And I hope people enjoy it and go to Amazon and get the book.
You betcha. And they'll learn a lot when they do.
All right. Thank you very much.
And thank you. And that was Lynn Doxon talking about her World War II novel, 90-Day Wonder, Book 1 of the Becoming the Greatest Generation series. Lynn is talking to us from Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is Traci Hales with Right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico, and 103.3 in Durango, Colorado.
Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.